It's Wednesday. It's Wednesday. Thank God that it's Wednesday. Hump day. How's everybody doing out there today? So we're on part 3 of our Make America and Whatever Again series. And today, as you can see by the title, it's Make America Hate Again and with a question mark. Now, I know some people don't subscribe to hate, just like even with me. My grandmother, the great late Mary O. King, used to always say, even when I would say it, don't you ever say that. Don't you ever say that you hate somebody. You don't hate anything. There's nothing in this world that's so bad that you have to hate it. God is the only one that can judge that. You don't hate anything because you didn't make anything. Well, I guess until I had kids. But I understood, especially as I got older, what she was saying. So kind of, to piggyback a little bit off of what I talked about yesterday, as far as affirmative action and people using certain code words and doing certain things. So I read something on NBC News online late last night, where it said that President Trump wants to now take more stuff out of the Smithsonian Institute chains that pertain to slavery. Right, that pertain to slavery. So, because he says that it basically it makes the bad parts about America he wants to take out. Now, what I say and what I always say, because I bring this up and I talk about it, about how there is a black card and everything, and if things like this didn't happen, we wouldn't need a black card. Because it is important to tell the history of the country. It is important to continue to talk about the current state of the country because we all live in it. And by the way, unless we're having some kind of nuclear war I don't know about anytime soon, we're going to have to live in it for hundreds, even possibly thousands of years to come, which none of us will be around for. But we still need to live in it right now. So when you talk about hate, sometimes, and like I said yesterday, I look at a lot of YouTube and everything. So I wanted to play something, and this is from Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Ritchie. Hope I'm saying his name right, just to give him credit. And this was a few years ago. Now, that's from this guy. His name is, what is his name? His name is Nick Fuentes. So he's one of the kind of guys that's been more on a conservative level as far as talking about certain things. Now, this clip is from 3 years ago, but he's even said things in my estimation that have been worse since then. But what I want you to do, we're going to listen to it real quick, just a little bit of it. And, not saying that a lot of other people feel like that, but anytime people feel brazen enough to say stuff like this and put it online, hey, let's take a listen to him. And once again, this is Nick Fuentes, and this is a few years ago.
Slowly coming back around to its implicit racism of the old days. Like I remember when Obama was president, there definitely was some thinly veiled, racism there. And sort of a xenophobia. You Muslim socialist, you're born in Kenya. And now that Ketanji Jackson Brown is a nominee, you're seeing conservatives are you're kind of getting a little taste of that again. And like I saw Charlie Kirk, for example. Charlie Kirk said, take a good long look at Ketanji Brown Jackson. This is what your country looks like on CRT. And a lot of liberals called him out for that, and they said, well, what exactly does that mean? What the hell does that even mean? It means, she's black, and if you're a white guy and you dream of becoming a Supreme Court justice, you're going to have to clerk for someone named Ketanji Brown Jackson. And so Charlie Kirk was he was this close to saying, look at that black face, look at her black face and her name, that's what your country's going to look like.
So yeah, that was from Nick Fuentes from 3 years ago. Once again, Dr. Rashad Ritchie, credit to him for posting it on his YouTube channel. So, when you hear stuff like this, you start to realize, dag, you know what? Does this person hate me? Does this person not like me? So when people wonder why certain races of people, and for me, I'll talk in particularly black, especially African Americans, feel away or feel defensive or feel standoffish, not just to try to play a card, a race card, but when you have stuff like that going on, where you have people talking like that, where you have the president wanting to remove certain things about black history and culture from this country, when you also, like I said before, in his cabinet, out of the many cabinet positions, how many African Americans does he have in his cabinet? I think, like I said before, maybe one, Ben Carson. If I'm wrong, somebody please comment and let me know if I'm wrong. So you see, it goes from talking and spewing hate to demonstrations of hate. Let me say it again. It goes from talking hate to demonstrating displays of hate. How does it demonstrate? Like I was saying to you yesterday about how at one point there was only 8 black CEOs out of all Fortune 500 companies. Everyone needs a shot. Everyone would like a shot, because contrary to what a lot of media would have people think, even black people themselves, is that there are a lot of great credentialed people out there who can do these jobs. I'll give you, for instance, I worked at a particular psych hospital, and I noticed that, and once again, great people, some of the other people I work with that are white, Asian, just dynamite people. So I'm not blaming them at all. But a lot of times during the 7 to 3 shift, it would be all white or some, whatever nurses as far as full time. And I get it. That's not their fault. But that's from, once again, like I said, just years and years of just not being conscientious of other people. So somebody might say to me, well, you know what, man, they were already they already had seniority. They had been there for years. But out of an entire psych hospital, all of them, you didn't have 1 or 2 or 3 tenured black nurses that could run units in a city that's over 60% black. That just kind of shook me a little bit. And, I noticed it. And of course, hey, what can you do? I was just a worker there. But as soon as the 3 to 11 shift started, I started seeing that it wasn't just seniority. It was the fact that at night now, this is where most of the black nurses would come in at and work. And I would think to myself, like, wow, am I just seeing stuff? But as most of us know, but may not want to admit, that our jobs typically are a microcosm of what's going on in the world, where you are going to have great people. And yes, let's just take, for instance, if I was a white guy, I wouldn't want to be blamed for what people did with slavery back in the 1800s, 1860s, where out of I think it was back then, maybe the country had about 30 million people, but about 10% of them, they were over 3 million slaves. So think about that for a second. Think about if you could get a person to come work at your house, to come feed your kids, to drive you to work, to do all of this other kind of stuff for free. All you got to do is feed them so they don't fall out. See, the reason why I talk like this is because it's easy just to say, white people don't such and such, or black people don't such and such. But no, it's good to give a personal insight from somebody who's been on earth for a while to say to you, this is why certain sentiments exist and still exist, and why people do, in a lot of cases, want to play a race card, maybe even if it's not there, because race is always there. You can't disproportionately have wealth going to a certain amount of people or certain type of people, but then other people don't have that hold of that wealth. Remember, this is supposed to be a land of hope, the land of the free, prosperity. That's why when somebody says, make America great again, make America great again for who? What does that mean? Tightening the strings even more? Because even a lot of times with, if you want to call it black on black crime or crime in the inner cities, most times, especially when it comes to violent crime, not all the time, most times it's black people on other black people. Because as I've said before, a lot of times you don't need a whites only society, because a lot of times in a lot of the counties I know here in Pennsylvania, especially Montgomery County or Westchester or Chester County, some of the other counties, most of the counties, because Pennsylvania is over 70% white. Just like most of these states. You just have a larger congregate of black people in the larger cities. That's it. So as together as the country is supposed to be in lack of hate, there really is still a huge divide. Even in a lot of cities. I've been to Boston before. I'm saying it like them. Boston. And I remember going in stores and I asked a couple of the girls in some of the stores we went into, I said, yo, black girls, said, is Boston really that racist? Said, yes. Said, yes. Said, it's extremely segregated. But you just learn how to deal with it, because this is where they live. In Philly, there's a lot of that going on, but of course, because we got a black mayor, we got a black commissioner, we got a lot of other things going on. But don't think for 1 second that doesn't exist. I remember I got pulled over before when I had a small used car dealership, and I had dealer plates on the back, and I'm driving and I'm just going to go see my nephew play basketball. And so I get pulled over because he said, oh, the tag isn't visible in the back of the window. And I said, well, I got it back there because, you know, sometimes, and there's been a rash of like thefts as far as taking tags out of the window, especially dealer tags or stolen car tags, as we see now going throughout the country, where you have a lot of people stealing tags and putting on other cars. And so that way, if something happens, it can't be traced back to who the owner is that they may know. So he pulls me over. He's a white cop. And I'm going to give it like this, because I've been pulled over several times by white cops and had no issue. None at all. But now I'm easily old enough, even at this point, because this is about 4 years ago, I'm old enough to be probably his dad, because he couldn't have been any more than 30. So he comes up and he says, yeah, license registration. So I give him my dealer ID. And for anybody that knows, the dealer, you get assigned a dealer number, lasts you for the rest of your life. So I had that. I had my my actual license. I had my personal car insurance. I had my dealer garage insurance. I had, what else did I have? I had just about everything. And I even had a copy of the title on my phone to this car that I had bought from the auction. And so he said, oh, you've had this car for over 2 months. Why are you still driving? I said, because it's in my fleet and I can drive it. Well, no, you know, you're supposed to have such. I said, no. That's not in the law. I know the rights. I went through all the class. That's not in the law. And it's from out of state. So you can't. So you know what he still continued to do? He wanted to go back and forth with me and said, you know, how are you able to, almost like, Negro, please, how are you able to get one? And you see how, you know, you start to feel like, and if you're not black, you won't feel it. But if you're black, everybody knows what I'm talking about. How in the world do you go and check out everything? My own license, my own insurance, the dealer insurance, the fact that I showed you ran the VIN numbers on his car because he actually opened up the door and wanted to see the inside VIN to make sure that it matched with the VIN that was in the dash. He came back. Everything came back clean. Nothing was stolen. Sorry, sir. Let me go along. Let me let you go along your way. But, you know, just do me a favor. Next time, try to display that tag. Or if an officer stops you again, there's nothing I can do about it. But no. And so then I asked. So then he says, well, I got to tow the car because that's what they do here in Pennsylvania is livestock. I'm going to tow the car. Now, this was the last time during Trump's administration when this happened. I said, no, I'd like to speak to a sergeant. So, of course, the sergeant comes out, She's a sister, a black lady. And I'm thinking, you know what? I said the same thing I said to her that I just said to you. I've presented this officer with everything I need to present. Everything has come back clean. I have not had a suspension, anything, ticket, nothing on my license in almost 30 years. And did it mean anything? Did it mean anything to, at the time, to be an almost 50-year-old man and being treated as less than by somebody who's young enough to be a son of mine? My car didn't smell like weed. I didn't have 1,000 people in there. It was a February afternoon, almost evening, and it was freezing outside. And what did he still do? He called the tow truck to take the car after everything cleared out. And that's just one story. I got a million of them. Luckily, they all don't end like that. But see, what happens is, unfortunately, when people have a perception of what's going on as a person with a certain skin color, you get a certain way of thinking and looking at things in life. How is it that I can show all of these proofs of something and still have my car taken and then have a black sergeant come out and she basically, because I get how it is, they're going to side with their officer. Okay, cool. But nobody here has reason. So I had to go so far as to me going to court, having had to prove myself in court, and filing a complaint with internal affairs against her and him. And I remember the last thing I'll say about it, the one question they asked was, well, do you think that it was racism involved? I said, I'm going to say this to you. I have been pulled over several times by other white cops. And what happens is that they have said, okay, we understand. They checked everything out and they did the right thing and let me go. So one person does not spoil the whole bunch of people. But the reason why I bring this up is that, in closing, is because I still got love in my heart for people. I don't hate people. Sometimes I dislike the situations that people are put in. And contrary to popular belief, most people, especially most black people, are not out here doing crime. And most people are not doing anything else that a lot of other people don't do or have done. It's just that some people, unfortunately, don't have as many opportunities as other. And when other people try to tell me, yeah, pull up by your bootstraps. Okay, I'm going to find you some people that have pulled up by their bootstraps. And then you hire them. You hire them at the same level that you hire a bunch of other people. There's plenty of people that were more than qualified to do some of those cabinet jobs that the president has, right? Did he pick them? No, he did not. He didn't. So when you have a person of color saying that, hey, you know what? It might feel like it's a lot of hating going on around here. Think about some of the stuff that I said. And I don't have any criminal record. But think about some of the stuff that I said. But you tell me how you feel. Is America filled with hatred? Or is America just this great loving pie? And by the way, because I know some people would say, well, go to another country. No, I ain't going nowhere, because there's a likelihood I was born here before you were. But hey, let me calm down and let me feel good, because guess what? Like I said, I'm full of love. And speaking of love, make sure you live life. Don't let life live you.